All right, guys, we have a training camp update with it right around the corner. Training camp kicks off next Wednesday, and we have players being put on the PUP list as well as NFI designation. So let's talk about who that is. So let's start with the active, physically unable to perform list. Brandon Aiyuk lands on that, along with offensive lineman Andre Dillard, defensive lineman Aiyuk Matos, safety Malik Mustapha, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall, we'll talk about that one in a second, and linebacker Curtis Robinson. Now, when I see Brandon Aiyuk's name on the active physically unable to perform list, I don't think that's actually a terrible thing, because if he was placed on the reserve physically unable to perform list, he would not be able to play until after week 4. So with BA on the active PUP, it means he might not be ready for the start of training camp, but it doesn't necessarily mean he won't be ready at some point. And if he is ready at some point, then you would say, well, does that mean he'll be ready for week 1? So there is some optimism, I would say, with these reports, but there is also, not ideal with these reports. So obviously it's a much different situation with BA because of his knee injury and not really knowing when he's going to return. To me, the fact that he's not on reserve PUP is a win. But we got to see how that continues to play out. So BA does have the opportunity still to be ready for week 1. We'll find out if that is actually going to be the case. And the one that sticks out to me the most is Ricky Pearsall. Obviously, Ricky was hurt for OTAs and mandatory minicamp, from my understanding. And from the last we heard from Kyle Shanahan, I do believe he did mention that Pearsall should be ready for the start of training camp. Well, he won't be. Obviously, with Ricky, I believe he was dealing with a hamstring injury. We do know those soft tissue hamstring injuries can creep up on you. So it is important to recognize, and again, it's not ideal. And there's also a world that exists where, Ricky starts out on the PUP for a couple days and then he's back in camp. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. And obviously with the Jauan Jennings contract holdout situation that seems to be brewing, not the ideal situation for the 49ers' top 3 wide receivers, Brandon Aiyuk, Ricky Pearsall, and Jauan Jennings. So I would have to believe that the 49ers might pivot to signing someone on the open market. And if you're asking me, let's bring on Keenan Allen. Come on, baby. Bring me Keenan Allen back to the Bay, former Cal Bear, one of my all-time favorite players. I would love that. But anyways, like I mentioned, Andre Dillard, who the 49ers signed this offseason to compete at swing tackle, is on the active. Aiyuk Matos is on the active PUP. It's still not ideal, considering the fact that, Yetur was hurt a lot last year, and the 49ers are still relatively thin at the defensive line position. Not great there. Malik Mustapha, not a surprise with him being on that list, nor Curtis Robinson. And then we also found out that Ben Barch has been placed on the active non-football injury list, and safety George Odom. The reason why I have an issue with this is Ben Barch is our starting left guard. So is that Nick Sakel who's going to slide in? There's no Aaron Banks here anymore. Is it going to be Spencer Burford who's going to get first reps at left guard? I would have to imagine. Who's going to be our swing tackle? Is it Burford? So this is not a great thing. The 49ers are already very thin at offensive line. Heading into this, they really didn't address it. They drafted Connor Colby in the 7th. Again, to me, that's not really addressing the offensive line position. You can still hit on an interior offensive lineman that late. But we'll see. The trenches, it's a little rough to start. But we'll have to see. And then, of course, Georgia Odom was hurt majority of last year. But I do think it's going to be a big training camp for safeties. Jason Pinnock, who I do think is going to be a big standout, and as well as Richie Grant. We're going to have to see about that. So these are the lists that have been reported by the San Francisco 49ers. I did my best to try to explain my thought processes and evaluations of them. And we'll have to see when training camp starts next week. Oh boy, are you guys excited? What do you think the 49ers need to do with this wide receiver injury issue and combined with holdout potential? Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.